Hey everyone, welcome to LinkedIn Live, another employee advocacy series with Analytic and Tribal Impact. Today we've got Gerry Moran from Cognizant, Head of Global Social Media. So a very warm welcome to you, Gerry.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Sarah. Great to be here.
Yeah. Hello. Welcome.
Hello, and everyone. And this is our sixth series for sixth interview for the employee advocacy series, and our first for 2021. So just to kick things off, Gerry, I know just looking through your background, you were I watched or listened to a podcast on Gaglamp, so that you were selling copiers at Kodak. You were saying like back in the day, and then direct marketing at home box office, and then you're applying direct marketing to digital marketing at IKEA, and then working agency side, and then coming to SAP for head of social media for North America, and then now at Cognizant, head of global social media. So you're obviously very well versed to talk about everything social media. But since this is a series about your personal influence, I'd love to hear about your sort of journey into becoming influential on a personal level on social media, since you've got quite a large audience on Twitter and LinkedIn. Would love to hear the background to that and how you got here to be who you are today.
Absolutely. So do you want me to draw the line from when I started to play in the social media sandbox, or do you want to, because there's a big influence before I got into social media, if you think about it. I had a very deep, either consumer packaged goods or direct marketing. At the end, at the end of the day, direct marketing really is social media. It's that one-to-one connection. It's putting out content that's relevant to people. It's getting people to sort of act and do what you want them to do. Either it's reading your thought leadership, learning from your thought leadership, and then I found myself in this whole IKEA space where social media was just becoming something. And I ran a catalog there, ran IKEA Family, all of that stuff while I was there. And then I jumped into the agency business and figured out, how to use social media for different industries, how to help the individuals build their brands, how the brands can build their brands, and then I found myself working at SAP with Sarah back in the day, and that's when it really took off, and the world of paid and advocacy and earned and owned media, each of these things had a certain impact on the business. Being able to drive that share of voice, being able to drive consideration, being able to drive, starting that conversation, what I'll call the 3 C's: community, consideration, and conversation, and realizing that I had a horse in the game, or a dog in the race, or whatever that particular term is. It's those of you who know me, I metaphor away in some of these things. One, you'll hear a cake analogy at one time during the talk today. But there's the impact that individuals have. You sort of have these platforms that are out there like LinkedIn and Twitter that are truly your reputation destinations, and they become that platform to be you're your own force multiplier, and it's how you take that and really help yourself as well as help the organization. And for 10 years now, I've been doing that at SAP, and I've been doing that at Cognizant, and then trying to really convince people and evangelize with people that you are they. So when you are that someone should do this, someone should do that. You are that someone. Whether you're a CEO, and our CEO, Brian Humphreys at Cognizant, does it really well. Very hands-on, actually does most of his stuff. And whether you're a consultant or just an associate, you have a responsibility. So it's sort of a constant learning. If you think about it, when I started, you brought up, Tim, when I was selling copiers back in the early 80s. There weren't even personal computers at that point, and you sort of pick these things up along the way, and then you figure out, okay, here's the rules of the road. This is what people are interested in. These are the technical details. All right, there's the opportunity. So we all can be influential, and as we can be an employee advocate. So there you go.
Brilliant. Well, You kind of got me at IKEA, to be honest with you, Gerry. So I've got a delivery turning up tomorrow. So I kind of suddenly
I
remind
see an IKEA closet in the back.
Oh,
So
it's
you're
all
back. You're
is.
back right. I know.
We are
I hear you.
IKEA top to toe in this house. It has to be so. And the cake analogy. Sorry, I had to write that one down because anything to do with cake catches my eye. And I always remember that infographic you did with the layers of the cake. Do you remember that?
The layers of the cake.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah, I do remember that. Now, I have a metaphor now because we're all, and it really applies to advocacy. If what happens in many organizations is you don't think about social many times until the end, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, we got to get and we'll do social. And so the metaphor to try, because we use metaphors to try to convince people in a way that is just sort of outside that focus. And the metaphor that seems to be pretty effective recently is adding social at the end of at the very end of the marketing strategy process. It's like pouring sugar onto a cake you've already baked because you forgot to put sugar in the cake. And if you do that, there's still sugar on it, but it's going to taste awful. So, yeah, and there's a great visual I have with that cake and the bag of Domino sugar pouring down, and that seems to do the trick to say, oh, it's a good point, absolutely. Which is why social needs to be at the table at the very beginning, and because when we're talking about whether it's a campaign or whether in your company, there's the idea is how do we activate organic, how do we activate advocacy. What are the messages we want people to share on the channels, and how do we build that? For the most time, advocacy, it's about ready-made, easy button type of content where you put it into LinkedIn Elevate, you put it into whatever the platform is out there. But it takes some thinking, and if it's done at the last minute, you're just not going to have that business impact. I mean, that's really what it is business impact. And anything we do with employee advocacy, you can measure. You can measure everything. It drives share of voice. It drives engagement and conversation. It drives web referral. And if you're driving web referral with employee advocacy, that's the best way in the world. To point to an ROI and say, I need a bigger machine. I need more seats. I need better content. Because they're the numbers. No one else can do that. Airport signs and that says, hey, here's a big software company. You can't do that for that. You can't do that necessarily for TV commercials, but you can certainly do it for advocacy.
I do have a quick question about the whole advocacy. I've had a couple of conversations just recently because you live it, breathe it. You are an advocate. You practice what you preach. So you believe in it, but you also do it. But specifically for maybe technology companies or companies that are maybe thought leadership led, services led, where the knowledge is the expertise, how do you activate technical people who typically don't have time for this, or they don't want to put themselves out there, they're a little bit hesitant? How do you get those experts out on social media? Because there tends to be quite a bit of resistance.
Right. So the easy way is to KPI it. So
You will do it.
That's it, and that's actually a discussion I had the other day with a peer at Cognizant. But aside from, I mean, that's not selling it. That's tying yourself to it. And if you don't share 10 times, then you can gamify it. You can get people, and you can sort of, I mean, gamification is the same as shaming people. So you could put out these reports on a weekly basis, and which is what we do, and we say these are the top sellers. Okay, oh my God, and some people want to be there, but some people aren't. And if you can show that, hey, this business unit has more people sharing, and your business unit doesn't have anybody, what up? Because I'm showing you the numbers, and we're showing you, the actual companies that are engaging with the employee advocacy content. So, I mean, that's sort of a fourth way, is to show business leadership. We're doing this thing. Web referrals are one thing, which, in the grand scheme of things, sales teams and sales leadership doesn't really care about. But if you throw a name of a client up there to say, look at that, they're engaging, they've engaged multiple times, that's a great thing. Now, take it back. And there's two ways to work referral, employee advocacy. There's creating that ready-made content, which is awesome. So there's a cost attached to that, and understanding the business and putting it all together. But it's trying to empower them to, one, you're not going to break the web. by actually engaging on it. You will not break the internet. But two, here's a quick way to tell a story. And it's like telling a story with concrete facts. So how can I break it down to the block? Using a U.S. term, blocking and tackling, to the blocking and tackling terms of this is what we mean. Here's an example of a really bad post. No likes, no shares, no engagement. Here's something that is really powerful. And it's not being a shill for your company, because what's the mix? The mix is 80-20, 30-70, and it's like 30% you're sort of promoting your company, or 20% you're promoting your company. The other time you're saying, hey, I have a smart point of view using other people's content. And that actually is much more powerful in the employee advocacy sandbox. Absolutely. So it's a matter of training and enabling and showing people, if you do this, that will happen. And we're all there's different levels in any organization as you break that down. You have the leadership level, so sort of that EVP, SVP, and above. You have the people in the middle, which are sort of client partners, associates, salespeople, and then you have everybody else. So how you train people to pick out what are you sharing, and what are the big takeaways. The concept of a takeaway, people, let's get out of the echo chamber, okay, which is, hey, great article, and more toward, this was my takeaway, that we all can understand. Big statistic, this is what it means, okay, whether I'm selling cloud or AI or IT services or software, whatever it is. And it's just showing the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we do that all the time. We do that with LinkedIn profiles. And, I used to have a wall of shame, if you remember back in the day, Sarah. It's like, here's the wall of shame. Don't have someone with a camel, someone with a horse, someone with, a celebrity, someone with their spouse, someone, at the prom picture. So you tell the story in very visual ways. And to just say, hey, do it this way, you're going to get X. If you're going to do it this way, you're going to get 10X. So do it like this, and then let's break it down.
So it sounds like you're very strategic. You've got a lot of measurement, education, and KPI driven. It's a mixture of all of that and a bit of fun sprinkled in, which is seems to be your strategy for driving the whole program.
It is. You got there's that old saying, you can't manage it if you don't measure it. You can't get budget if you don't measure it. You can't get people and resources if you don't measure it. And so it's running it's running a program with the metrics and having a little bit of fun, and creating these sort of bright, shiny objects along the way to say, here's a report, here's how it works. Here's a little bit of fun. It's really easy to do. Come on, we work in social media. This.
I'm just laughing because I'm kind of thinking. So when we did the same job at SAP, but you were doing it for North America and I was doing it for EMEA, I was being quite collaborative about it. Trying to bring people on. You were pinning people up and shaming them, were you? Sort of saying, this is how you don't do it.
I was exactly.
How you got your numbers?
I mean, I can remember a sales guy holding 2 fish. It's like, why on earth are you? I mean, and then so that really ties into advocacy. Is that going to help you, or is that going to? I mean, the fact that you're still on my wall of shame, it ain't helping you.
I do think you raise a good point there, though, that I think bringing people on this advocacy journey, employees need to understand what good looks like versus what it doesn't look like. And telling them like best practice, telling them theory is all good, is one thing, but actually showing them, this is what a good post, this is why it gets so much engagement. And this is why this post does not get any engagement. So they have to see it, I think, don't they?
I think they have to see it. I think they have to try it. And it becomes muscle memory. And if you stop doing it for a while, it goes away. The muscle memory goes away and the impact goes away. So, your impact and the impact on, let's say, the LinkedIn algorithm or the Twitter algorithm goes away. So if you're not bubbling at the top, if you don't build your tribe, you're just not going to have that love going on. And if you don't have that love going on, you're going to have a smaller relevant audience than a larger relevant audience. And I'm all for having a larger relevant audience. And in addition to helping the brand, which it helps you, and there's that symbiotic relationship that you have with the brand and your personal. And I think if we were all strong advocates and sort of our own internal micro influencers, the B2B world, and B2C world probably, but more the B2B world would be a better place.
Mm.
And Gerry, I just wanted to ask about your personal influence, because you've got, it's not all about followers, but you've got 88,000 followers on Twitter and 12,000 on LinkedIn. So you've obviously got a sizable audience which you built up. How do you approach your social media posting and engaging? Because I know that your motto is don't just be present, engage. And so you like to engage, you post on the polls. Like, how do you create time and run your own personal strategy?
All right. So my first goal is to get to 100,000 Twitter followers, and I can't get there. So if everybody watching today can follow me, get me to 100,000, that'd be great. Only kidding.
I think that was a shameless plug.
A shameless plug.
To all 12,000 of you watching, then
yeah.
We should be able to get there in the next few seconds.
Yeah, we'll get it.
So finding the time, you know what, we have always, and my girlfriend will attest to this. I wake up every day eating social media for breakfast. I have a Feedly feed. This stuff changes on the daily, and you gotta stay on top of it. Good point. Yesterday, I was going through my Feedly feed. I have things set up, and sort of blogs follow, companies follow, all that stuff. It's like, awesome, Dilbert. Okay, so right away, let me go to it. There's no such thing as let me get to this later. It's trying to do it in real time. Now, take a step back. It's also having a strategy involved. So it's sort of muscle memory, and it's a framework. My job is to, and this is without even links, sending them to my blog. It's been for the last year or 2 years. Let's find smart things to say that give people a different read on the world, a different read. My space ends up being social media, social selling, content strategy, content marketing, and some advocacy. And so when my eyes are just open for that, and it's sort of the radar's out there, it's like, what's the story here? I mean, there's some crap content that are out there that use statistics from 2012, or even don't even mention statistics. So there's nothing learning there. It's more of like, I think versus I know. So it's finding the content that is more I know versus I think, and then trying to tell a story. Ultimately, I want to be able to tell a story in a way. It's like, here's a great fact. Here's Stephen King. Let's take his voice and the statistic to tell a story, to really come at it, to try to get people to think about the content marketing, social media world, employee advocacy world a little bit different. So you do it you do it daily. Now, the question is, do you do it twice a day, 3 times a day? Like yesterday, I posted twice on LinkedIn. But I like to mix it up with, the big facts, from relevant sources, the Pews of the world, Content Marketing Institutes of the world, Analyticas of the world. And then the polls work out really well. So, at the end of the day, what's your goal? Is your goal to get more followers, or your goal is to have a more engaged audience? If you have more engaged audience, you're going to hit second and third tier or level connections that are out there. So, it's a lot of testing and learning. And, right now what seems to be hot is if my goal is conversation, which it is, it's putting polls out there, putting polls, and if it's a great cartoon, but I put polls that are sort of snarky and a little, pragmatic and snarky at the same time. Or, it's something that I bump into a situation at work and say, all right, there's a bigger play here. I got a lot of people following me, within the organization. Let me put this particular poll or observation out there to sort of get to them a different way. And then and it's just sort of it's sort of the end around to say, I ran into this person isn't getting this group isn't getting it. Let me not be malicious, but let me be strategic. And maybe they'll see it and they'll say, oh, that's a great point. And ultimately, I'm sort of being an influencer to try to influence internally. So I got my internal people, I got my external people, and it's, through conversation, because if you can be articulate and tell a story and use some numbers, that's probably 90% of the battle.
Yeah. Love that. I'm reading To Sell is Human at the moment, Dan Pink's book. And he talks a lot about influence and everything that he's just said. I've got to call out here. There's some comments down here. So Greg said, telling someone to do something differently offers little more than frustration. Showing them how to do something differently catalyzes change. So thanks, Greg. Yep, spot on. Now, Smitha has just left a question. So one for you. I'm going to put this one for you, Gerry. How to motivate people when times are not so great, specifically in the context of startups, maybe small companies. It's a bit of a tough economy. How do you motivate your teams? I think we've all got Zoom fatigue, right? And we're all a bit tired of the whole sitting on a conference call all the time.
It's fine to be on LinkedIn Live though. Just
of course, yes, definitely. It was never,
much better than Zoom.
It's a bit different. But how do you get people to squeeze an extra bit of 10 minutes a day on social when they're a bit like, you know
what, it ends up being the job. We're all in this space. There is no side gig, within your organization. There's no side hustle. This is the gig, and we're all communicators, and we have to make time. And I think by showing and leading, so I think leadership first. If the leader's doing it, then everyone else should do it. And so it's like in our organization, if the CMO has time to do it, the CEO has time to do it, you know what? You all have time to do it. You make it fun, you gamify it, and then you teach. You try to make it really simple. That I think most of the time people say, one more thing I have to learn. It's not that hard. It is not that hard. There's a style issue. Some of it's like you're given a direction. Here you go. You're given the directions to bake the cake, Sarah. So we're saying. Yeah. And you give the same recipe to the cake to everybody. Everyone's going to bake that cake a little bit differently. Okay. So you just sort of, just going to taste the same. 10 people, same recipe, 10 different cake executions. So you have to figure out how do you get everyone on the same page? Maybe it's not making a cake. Maybe it's just making something that's a little less complex. And then you go back up to sort of making that cake. So simple, make it fun. Keep score. And back in the old days of the sales contest, I guess there still are sales contests. Make it fun, and that could be that could be good. Or you KPI it.
With a big hammer.
I think to use the cake analogy, you got all the right ingredients, Gerry, because you got Brian, you got the CMO, you've got yourself who's leading up, who's leading, showing up, and then you can also bring in the fun element and the education, and then actually it should benefit everybody. I know that there's always going to be those people who are cynical, but I think you got the main ingredients. So that I guess you can't bring everyone along, but over time, like I read some stats or someone put it out there that social media might be like email was like decades ago, where people were imagining email being day to day, and now social media is day to day. And in 6 or 7 years, if you don't have social media capabilities, you might not be able to get a job. So it's going to be changing at this rate, where there's going to be a tipping point in the next 5 years, if it hasn't already happened, where, as you said, it's no side hustle. It's just it's part of the job.
And everyone's going to be expected to have these skills and just a mastery of these skills, and what's going to be tougher for the Gen Zs coming out of college and university is the expectation, even if you're not going for a social media gig, to understand how it works, because it's just you didn't even throw the digital native thing aside. It's just like, I hire a 22-year-old person, my expectation is going to be that this stuff inside and out. And then that goes back to that's where the education comes, because there's sort of that gap where, I know how to I'm on LinkedIn because I gotta get a job. I'm on Twitter, but I'm posting all this stuff that probably shouldn't be there. And I'm on Insta and YouTube. I'm just not quite there, but I watch these goofy YouTube videos. So the skill set, that raw set is there. But you got to teach, do you want someone right out of university running your advocacy program, or running your exec comms, or running your organic channels with 4 or 5 million followers? No. So But even though it's native, yeah, and to your point, Tim, that gets, so social media is going to be where email was. There's still this skill issue. I mean, there's still skill issue with emails. How many bad emails have we seen people write? It's like, oh my God, what are you doing? So, the need for advocacy and sort of this fine tuning and being able to teach people and help people and hold their hand and bring them along, I think will be there. But hey, I'm an old seasoned guy.
Yeah. Oh, I've got to ask you something though. I'm switching. Like, I'm trying to get off the cake analogy because I'm getting hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah. You create a lot of content, Gerry. So you're kind of like up there. You're active on social anyway. You engage, you share insights, but you also create a lot of content. And I want to know how you fit that in your working day, because there'll be a lot of people that are probably at that stage where they're sharing, they're engaging, but they're kind of like, I want to maybe create videos or write a blog, or at what point did you tip over to that, and how do you fit it in to get it done?
Yeah, so I started my blog when I was at SAP. To basically practice what you preach. You can't make an impact unless you practice what you preach. And and as you are developing your own content, you start to understand the geeky things like H1 tags and H2 tags and listicles. And this stuff really works. When I do an H1 tag or H2 tag, more people find me. So I should do that more. And I spent a lot of time at night doing that. And then I got busy again at Cognizant. I'm trying to find some more time now to sit down and put the content together. And I find time by finding the pain point in my day. That really was at SAP, finding the pain point in a day and really quick streaming. These are 5 ways to fix that problem. Okay. And then wrapping it in a story and wrapping it with advice. And, a lot of the problem with creating my own content is finding the new and relevant, the refreshed and updated statistics, because no one should blog without a fact. There's got to be a fact in every blog, even if it's one. I'd like to shoot for 3 or 5, because you're telling your story with content. And if I'm telling everybody, at Cognizant and externally, you got to tell your story with concrete facts. I got to be out there. And I read some of this stuff, and it's like, what are you doing quoting a fact? Again, quoting a fact from 2012. That's irrelevant now, okay? Even if it from some of the major sources that are out there. So you do it in parts, but you get really passionate, and then you got to have someone else read it and make sure that you got to have a structure and a framework. This is how it works. Idea down. Write it and just sort of let it flow. It's not like getting a blog out in one day, but it's having a passion. It's having a schedule. You want to make sure you don't bore your audience, but it's making time. It's just things don't happen. Good things don't happen from easy ways of doing things.
And I guess, Gerry, because you're so hungry for stats and facts, that polls are a great way of putting the questions that are the day-to-day challenges just out there. Getting the stats, because you've got the audience, and it also drives the engagement, and then you can write a blog thereafter. So I guess it feeds all of your passions and strategy in one go. So I think that's a really good learning for the audience to do polls, because I don't see too many people doing it. I know that we haven't done it too much as an organization or individually, and I think that's one of my key takeaways. Definitely.
Yeah, we're starting to do that at Cognizant, and I know other brands are doing it, but it's just another way in. People are tired of seeing pitches and just me-centric and brand-centric messaging, and this gives people an easy voice, and it's an anonymous engagement. Not really. It's not anonymous at all, actually, because you can see who votes and how they vote.
Yeah.
So there's something Machiavellian about that, but
be careful about that. If you're taking part in a LinkedIn poll, they know which answer you put. So
yeah. Well, that's fine. So it's sort of a fishing hole. It ends up being a smaller fishing hole, and you see how people, you see who, but you're seeing who you resonate. So even if you decide not to engage back with someone, you're just saying, is this resonating with the right people? Am I doing something right? I see people who I have engaged with forever on LinkedIn, and they'll vote, and then I'll reach out to them and say, "Hey, great to see you. I haven't seen your face on my pop up my feed in a while," and that's a good thing. But yeah, Tim, it does a great job of driving that engagement and telling which way the wind's blowing. And that's all these polls do, is just like, it's not like a Pew Research poll by any stretch of the imagination, but or a Gartner poll. It's my poll on LinkedIn, and it's there to get how people feel, and then I'll ask them if you want to quote on my blog, and and then it goes from there.
Great. I really like it. Sorry, you probably had a...
No. I was just going to say that's a really good idea, and I think in terms of if we talk about influencer engagement, that's a great way to get that going, isn't it? I mean, it's like you answered my poll. Would you mind quoting on my blog? And and this is how it's all connected. So very good.
It's like planting a seed, and that's really what influencer and I think employee advocacy is. It's just like planting that seed. It's like you can't go and just harvest everything at the end of the deal. It's like, I got to get a sale, so I'm going to go to the cornfield and take all the corn to harvest. You got to plan, and you got to plant the seed, and you got to nurture it, you got to water it, and so you have multiple fields of corn from which you can take corn. You like that metaphor?
Yeah, I like that one. I'm seeing another infographic there. More food. There's a lot of talk of food on this.
A lot of food. Mm-hmm.
Food
are you under pressure to come up with a new metaphor every week? Are your team just searching for more?
There's a blog for you, Gerry.
No, they just come. I see metaphors.
Yeah. I see them, but I mix them. So I probably go, sometimes you can mix three, and then you really have to stop just speaking plain English. But so I know that you have a passion for measurement. Just curiosity, and it's not that we necessarily think it's a really important thing, but do you know the breakdown of your audience on LinkedIn and Twitter? Do you know who they are, where they come from, what topics they want to hear from you, or do you get a sense of that?
I depend less and less on Twitter every day. It's less of the conversational channel, and it's, think about it. LinkedIn is more of a closed-ish audience, and Twitter is more of an open-ish audience. Even the way that hashtags are followed, hashtags on LinkedIn are a micro community. Twitter, you're just, it's there, and you might get some sort of feeling of a micro community. So it's less and less on Twitter. How they break down, I get a feel for, we all can see how many lists we're on, and if there's a couple tools that are out there like TweetDeck and things like that, that to me, forget about running the demographic tool, is a really good feel. The more lists you're on, and a percentage of that means you're resonating with someone. So if someone's put together a list and they might be a really big influencer, it might be just a student starting to get out, but you're resonating with someone. So that's, to me, what I love to measure most. On LinkedIn, I have a feel, and it's, people are following me. I look at the comments, and I'd love the algorithm to love me a little more. But that'll come with time. All the people I know at LinkedIn, I can't get the algorithm to work for me a little bit more. But I can tell when just given the engagement, and even if it's that smaller group, and then that are engaging, I'm good. I'm good for what I want to do. I'm good. I think there's the appetite for newer content, and that's coming from me soon. But you get a feel for the conversation going back and forth, and the more detailed the conversation, the more that it resonates, and the bigger conversation that you can have.
Great. No, I think that's a really good answer, and I love the different analogies of LinkedIn and Twitter, and you're looking at lists to just have an anecdotal sort of touch point to just see whether you're sort of showing up more on different topics. I think that's a really good way of doing that. I know that we're coming up to time soon. Sarah, did you have some more questions for Gerry? I know we could speak for hours.
Could. I have got a whole list of questions. I keep writing things down, but I'm going to ask another one. What advice would you give? I mean, you're there, you've been through that journey for a while, like getting your social profile going and building an audience and collaborative audience. What advice would you give to maybe someone in your company or in other companies that are kind of how do you start, right? They're sat there going, okay, I'm kind of on LinkedIn, but I don't really do anything on there. You know, most people are not active, but they want to be active. How do you get them over that hump?
Yeah, so you're building a presence, and there are people with much larger presence that I have. It's exhausting. It is just exhausting. So if you're gonna jump on the horse, make sure you're there for the long ride, because it is exhausting. And if you stop halfway, it's gonna hurt to get back on the horse. There's another horse analogy or metaphor. But
Oh, brilliant! There's another one.
But just don't eat cake while you're on the horse.
Don't. And I've now got lost my metaphor. What was the question again, Sarah?
What advice did
you?
I'm sorry, the horses through cornfields as well. It's all linking together. This, what a great story. I was saying, what advice would you give someone who was sitting on the edge, thinking, "I really want to be more social, but I'm a bit hesitant, a bit resistant"? What's their next step? What's their
right? So the way to look at it, and I actually was talking to someone earlier this morning about that. It's you have to look at LinkedIn as not sort of your resume central. It really is your reputation destination. And if you look at it as your reputation destination, it takes a whole new feel. It's not a resume. You're telling a story. What is your story? So, before you start writing, what is it I want to do? What is my voice? And it's doing that thoughtful, approach to it. So you can run into a cartoon, you can run into a stat and say, this fits in. Start small. And especially doing it on LinkedIn, you have these metrics. You have how many people viewed your profile, how did you show up in search, how many people are liking your stuff, how many LinkedIn invitations did you have? And people it's sort of vanity. I want to get 1,500 people viewing me on a rolling basis. That's like my goal. I want to get up to 1,500 people viewing my stuff on a regular basis. So I want to gamify it a little bit. But it starts small, and then you can see the impact. You say, well, if I do a little bit more, that's a great way to look at it, because it gets your name out there, it gets your point of view out there, and if you do think of it as your reputation destination, getting your point of view out there is really, really important.
I've always got a little bit of a motto in business: if you focus on the fun, the numbers will come. And I kind of think that works with like the revenue, but also your followers. The moment you start stressing over how many followers you've got, have they gone up this week, has my SSI score gone down, you're too focused on the numbers, right? If you focus on enjoying what you do, the numbers will come. I think.
Yep, that's an awesome. Yep, that's an awesome way to think of it. But you got to look at your numbers while you're having fun to say, all right, this ain't working. What do I need to do to change it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we're short on time, so we gotta wrap up. But Gerry, thank you so much for coming on this chat. I was going to say interview, but it's just an informal chat. It's been really, really interesting speaking to you. What I got as a takeaway is that you just inject a lot of fun and education and measurement, and you're really energetic and passionate about everyone's success. So I'm sure that goes a long way. It's obviously worked for you and your profile. So, and I love the reputation destination. It's obviously going to be more and more important. So thank you so much for showing up and being on our LinkedIn Live.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cheers, Gerry. Good to see you.
Tim, Steph, everybody who's watching, thanks.
Yeah.
Talk to you guys later.
Thank you. And if you haven't followed Gerry, you need to follow him right now. That's not him asking. That's us saying that it's in your best interest, because he's a great marketer. And if you want some more resources, you can go to Analytica's or Tribal's website under the heading resources, and you can see the other interviews that we've done with other leaders. So thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time.
Cheers, Gerry. Take care.
See ya. Cheers.
Thank you, Gerry.
Bye.
Thanks, Sarah.